Hello, peoples. Hope everybody is alive and awake and, haven't fallen asleep halfway within the week. And if you have, then, set an alarm. So anyways, welcome to another week of Most Influential Women. And thanks for joining us. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's see what we got. Okay, so this week, let me introduce you to Dr. Barbara McClintock, born June 16, 1902, in Hartford, Connecticut. She is an American scientist whose discovery in the 1940s and 50s of mobile genetic elements, or jumping genes, won her the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine in 1983. Now, McClintock, whose father was a physician, she really loved science as a kid, and she actually ended up having that independence that she would later use her life. Now, after attending high school, she enrolled as a biology major at Cornell University in 1919. She received a Bachelor's of Science in 1923, a master's degree 2 years later, and having specialized in cytology, genetics, and zoology, a PhD in 1927. That's amazing. Guys, as a girl, as a woman, in 1927, having a PhD, that was a lot of hard work. I can't imagine how difficult that was for her. It's a great accomplishment. Now, during graduate school, she began the work that would occupy her entire professional life: the chromosomal analysis of corn, maize. She used a microscope and a staining technique that allowed her to examine, identify, and describe individual corn chromosomes. In 1931, she and a colleague, Harriet Creighton, published a correlation of cytological and genetical crossing over in maize, a paper that established that chromosomes formed the basis of genetics. Based on her experiments and publications during the 1930s, McClintock was elected Vice President of the Genetic Society of America in 1939 and President of the Genetic Society in 1944. She received a Guggenheim Fellowship in 1933 to study in Germany, but she left early because of the rise of Nazism. I absolutely would have jetted out early too. When she returned to Cornell, her alma mater, she found that the university would not hire a female professor. Not even surprised. The Rockefeller Foundation funded her research at Cornell from 1934 to 36 until she was hired by the University of Missouri in 1936 to 1941. In 1941, McClintock moved to Long Island, New York, to work at the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. And that's where she spent the rest of her professional life. Now, in the 1940s, by observing and experimenting with variations of the coloration of kernels of corn, she discovered that genetic information is not stationary. Now, by tracing pigmentation changes in corn and using a microscope to examine that plant's large chromosomes, she isolated 2 genes that she called controlling elements. These genes controlled the genes that were actually responsible for pigmentation. McClintock found that the controlling elements could move along the chromosome to a different site. that these changes affected the behavior of neighboring genes. She suggested that these transposable elements were responsible for new mutations in pigmentation or other characteristics. This is pretty cool. McClintock's work was ahead of its time and was for many years considered too radical or was simply ignored by her fellow scientists. Deeply disappointed with her colleagues, she stopped publishing the results of her work and ceased giving lectures, though she continued doing research. Now, not until the late 1960s and 70s, well after biologists had determined that the genetic material was DNA, did members of the scientific community finally begin to verify her earlier findings. Now, when recognition finally did come, McClintock was inundated with awards and honors, most notably the 1983 Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine. She was the very first woman to be the sole winner of this award. That means she didn't have to share it with a guy. That's huge. That was really, really cool. That means that she didn't have to have a guy on there in order to be recognized. Now, Dr. Barbara McClintock passed on September 2nd, 1992 in Huntington, New York. We want to thank her as we add her to our extensive list of most influential women. May we continue to inspire each other to go further than we ever thought possible. Alright guys, thanks for joining us for another week of Cholo Science Presents. We hope that you are having a great week so far. Stay safe and try to stay in one piece. Alright, see ya!